Senator Evan Bayh, Democrat from Indiana, joins us now to discuss the breaking news. Senator, thanks for joining us. Boy, big day in the financial world today. 2,300-page bill passes. What do you think of this bill, sir?
Well, I think it's probably better than doing nothing. It's not exactly the way I would have written it. There's still a lot of uncertainty because there are a lot of decisions yet to be made by the regulators. So some of these issues were just punted down the road. But the direct answer to your question is we've just come off the greatest financial crisis since the 1930s, almost tanked the entire global economy. Clearly, we had to try and prevent a repetition from that, even if it's less than ideal.
Senator, does it go far enough? I mean, some would say on the right that it doesn't address two big question marks, Fannie and Freddie. You know, those were the lenders of last resort. They ended up facilitating quite a bit of loans that end up being subprime and dangerous loans. Some people would point their finger saying, hey, there is ground zero for the financial disaster we've been through. What about that?
Well, I think there's some truth to that. I was one of only 2 Democrats to actually vote for the Republican proposal that would have included Fannie and Freddie reform in this bill. As you point out, when you look at the housing markets, they were at least tangentially involved in some of what was going on. So I think that was a real omission here. That was kicked down the road until later, frankly, probably because of political considerations. That's not right. It should have been in there. That being said, there are still some systemic challenges, and the too big to fail issue have been addressed in this bill. And it's, as I said, on balance, it's better than doing nothing, even if it's less than perfect and not what I would have preferred.
Senator, there's some new rules for credit cards, interest rates, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Also some new rules for Wall Street trading companies. I would say those are probably pretty good ideas. Would you agree?
Yeah, probably pretty good ideas. Again, they promote more transparency, more price discovery. They may at least temporarily affect the profits of some of the businesses, but my guess is they can work with the regulators to figure out a way to strike the right balance and those sorts of things. Again, the purpose here was to try and take some of the huge amounts of risk and leverage that were in the system out, so that if there are people involved in the financial markets who want to risk their own capital, that's absolutely fine. That's the American way. But if they get so big and are so levered and so interconnected with others that they threaten, if their bets go wrong, to bring down the entire system and have the taxpayers forced to come in and put their money at risk, well, then that's not right.
Senator, you make a great point. What about too big to fail? That seemed, originally it was in the bill, then it kind of slipped its way out of the bill. Should it have been in the bill? Where do you stand on too big to fail?
Well, clearly, I don't think any entity should be allowed to become so big that if they fail, the taxpayers have to step in to pick up the pieces, because then they have incentives to run greater risks. It's sort of all upside for those who are running the enterprises, and the downside's limited because the taxpayers and the shareholders end up picking up the bag. So you can't have enterprises that are just, quote, too big to fail. There is provisions in this bill now for the orderly unwinding of institutions that threaten the larger economy. That did not exist before. That was one of the problems with Lehman Brothers. We didn't have that mechanism. And there's now a systemic risk council that allows the Federal Reserve and others to look at some of these enterprises, and if they're becoming so big that they threaten to bring down the rest of the economy, to do something about that in terms of leverage and capital requirements.
Sir, touch on that a little bit. So what would happen in the event of that? That seems like a regulator making some pretty hefty decisions.
Yeah, this is a true dilemma. On the one hand, if you allow these companies just to get so big and run such risks, it'd be so levered that they run the risk of bringing everybody else down with them, then the taxpayers are forced to step in. That's what happened this last time. We don't want to see a repetition of that. On the other hand, you don't want some bureaucrat sitting somewhere deciding when a company is just too big by themselves. So it requires a group of individuals, not any one entity, to make that call. And there was a vote actually on an amendment that would have just capped the size of banks arbitrarily and just said, look, this is as big as you can get. Beyond that, you can't get any larger. I voted against that because I thought that was just too much government intrusion, and also would have handicapped us in the global marketplace where scale does matter in terms of competitiveness.
Senator, yeah, Wall Street Journal, before I let you go, Wall Street Journal has characterized you as genuinely fiscally conservative Democrat. You've lowered taxes as a governor of the state of Indiana. You've said you're going to not run for your Senate seat. Are you going to run for president, sir?
No, I have no intention to run for president. I am, however, back on my medication, and that led me to decide to not run for re-election to Congress. But, all joking aside, it's been a privilege. I've loved working on the challenges that face our country, particularly trying to get the deficit down and create jobs. Those are vitally important. But I think the time is now right for me to re-enter the private sector and to create some value there.
Boy, you know what? I think we need more lawmakers like you, smaller, leaner governments, get the deficit down, create jobs. Senator Evan Bayh, thank you very much for joining us.